Last spring, the hooded Mergansers showed up and took over the Black River Channel on the Upper Mississippi National Wildlife and Fish Refuge. Their spring frolic attracted everyone's attention. They're choosing partners and getting ready to nest. As with all ducks, the female is called a hen, and the male is called a drake. Once the hen chooses her drake, that drake must fend off all the other drakes to protect his hen. These are hooded Mergansers. The drake has a marvelous, expandable crest that opens and closes like a Chinese fan. By stretching his neck out and puffing his crest, he appears much larger than he really is. When he is diving or keeping a low profile, the crest is pulled down. This close-up shows that he came up from a dive under a floating stick which stayed on his back. His bill is serrated so he can hold on to fish, and this earned him the nickname Sawbill. The hen has less contrast in her colors, so she blends in with her surroundings more than the drake. Close inspection shows beautifully detailed color patterns in her feathers. Mergansers are excellent divers, and they can hold their breath for a long time. The ice had melted in the middle of the channel, but there was a thick ice shelf left on the sides of the channel, and Mergansers love to swim under the ice to catch fish. Nothing like largemouth bass for lunch. After a meal, it's time for some preening, some stretching, and who doesn't enjoy a little nap after lunch? Even while napping, they have to keep an eye out for hungry eagles, or they could become the next lunch themselves. Hooded Mergansers weren't alone in the channel that year. This is their cousin, the American Merganser, also called the common Merganser. They also love diving under the ice. They're about twice the size of the hooded Merganser. American Mergansers are found far to the north, even in the middle of the winter. Any place they can find a hole in the ice to dive for food. And here is their other cousin, the red-breasted Merganser. What a cool punk haircut! This Merganser nests on the ground instead of in tree cavities, and it migrates from the tundra all the way to the Gulf of Mexico and up and down both east and west coasts. It's the only Merganser that's truly at home in both fresh and salt water. Here you see all three varieties of Mergansers in the same spot. Well, here we are inside the nesting box. The hen lays an egg a day for 11 or 12 days. And after she lays each one, she buries them deep in the nest to keep them from freezing, yet cool enough so they don't start incubating. Then she leaves the nest until the next day. Sometimes after she leaves, another merganser will enter and add an egg to the clutch. Wait a minute, that's no merganser. This red-bellied woodpecker must have thought this was a good place to lay her eggs. But it wasn't meant to be. Mama Merganser wasn't about to take care of those 2 eggs, so they never did hatch. Sometimes the egg-laying hen looked absolutely at peace. Intruder, another hen merganser, enters the nest in an attempt to lay an egg. This fight went on for 7 whole minutes before the intruder was finally ejected. All the while, the intruder's mate urged her on from outside the nest box. Finally, the intruder made an exit. At the bottom of the screen, you see the intruder managed to lay an egg. After she has laid her dozen eggs, she begins the long incubation process. She mixes the wood chips that we have provided with small fluffy feathers called down, which she plucks off of her own breast. She must keep the eggs warm for a whole month so they can develop into ducklings. She turns them over often, then spreads her belly as wide as she can to radiate heat from her body to the eggs. She takes 2 or 3 breaks a day, leaving the nest for about an hour to feed. After 5 whole weeks, the eggs finally begin to hatch. They continued hatching throughout the day. The mother would feed on the eggshells after each duckling managed to hatch. It wasn't long before the whole brood, 12 of her own and 4 laid by other mergansers, were hatched. These ducklings are ready to swim and feed themselves once the hen leads them out of the nest box. All 16 ducklings managed to escape in less than a minute. Let's watch the escape from outside the box. As soon as she hits the water, she begins calling those ducklings. Once she knows they have all made the leap, she cautiously leads them away from the area, crossing the channel to a nearby island. And that turns out to be a good thing, because no sooner had she gotten out of eyesight with her brood than this mink appeared, with the fresh smell of duckling hanging in the aquatic vegetation near the shore. He tried to follow the duckling scent out into the channel, but the current had washed the scent away. So he swam back to the shore and climbed the tree in an attempt to enter the nest box. As soon as he left the water, red-winged blackbirds were joined by an oriole in loudly scolding the would-be intruder. Mink are fierce and agile predators, but this mink could not find a way into our predator-resistant nesting canisters. So he eventually had to leave the scene still hungry. Well, that was some spring when the hooded Mergansers took over the Black River Channel on the Upper Mississippi National Wildlife and Fish Refuge.